The Lord be with you. I'm Deacon Keith Fournier, and our first reading is from the first book of Samuel. The elders of Israel all assembled, went back to Samuel at Ramah and said, "Look, you are old, and your sons are not following your example. So give us a king to judge us like the other nations." Samuel thought that it was wrong of them to say, "Let us have a king to judge us." So he prayed to Yahweh. But Yahweh said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you. It is not you they have rejected." Everything that Yahweh had said, Samuel then repeated to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who is to reign over you will do. He will take your sons and direct them to his chariotry and cavalry, and they will run in front of his chariot. He will use them as leaders of 1,000 and leaders of 50. He will make them plow his fields and gather in his harvest, and make his weapons of war and the gear for his chariots. He will take your daughters as perfumers, cooks, and bakers. He will take the best of your fields, your vineyards, and your olive groves, and give them to his officials. He will tithe your crops and vineyards to provide for his courtiers and his officials. He will take the best of your servants, men and women, of your oxen and your donkeys, and make them work for him. He will tithe your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry aloud because of the king you have chosen for yourselves. But on that day, Yahweh will not hear you." The people, however, refused to listen to Samuel. They said, "No, we are determined to have a king, so that we can be like the other nations, with our own king to rule us and lead us and fight our battles." Samuel listened to all that the people had to say and repeated it in Yahweh's ear. Yahweh then said to Samuel, "Do as they ask and give them a king." Samuel then said to the Israelites, "Go home, each of you, to his own town." And our response is taken from Psalm 89. "In your name they rejoice all day long. By your saving justice they are raised up. You are the flower of their strength. By your favor our strength is triumphant. For to Yahweh belongs our shield, to the Holy One of Israel, our King. Once you spoke in a vision. To your faithful you said, I have given strength to a warrior. I have raised up a man, chosen from my people." A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark. When Jesus returned to Capernaum, some time later, word went round that he was in the house, and so many people collected that there was no room left, even in front of the door. He was preaching the word to them when some people came, bringing him a paralytic, carried by 4 men. But as they could not get the man to him through the crowd, they stripped the roof over the place where Jesus was. And when they had made an opening, they lowered the stretcher on faith, on which the paralytic lay. Seeing their faith, Jesus said to the paralytic, "My child, your sins are forgiven." Now some scribes were sitting there, and they thought to themselves, "How can this man talk like that? He's being blasphemous. Who but God can forgive sins?" And at once Jesus, inwardly aware that this is what they were thinking, said to them, "Why do you have these thoughts in your hearts? Which of these is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Get up, pick up your stretcher and walk'? But to prove to you that the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins on earth," he said to the paralytic, "I order you, get up, pick up your stretcher, and go off home." And the man got up and at once picked up his stretcher and walked out in front of everyone, so that they were all astonished and praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." The Gospel of the Lord.